1917 is about two British soldiers, Lance Corporal Schofield and Lance Corporal Blake, who receive seemingly impossible orders. In a race against time, they must deliver this message and save potentially 1,600 of their fellow comrades, including Blake's brother. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend seeing it in the cinema, because this is a movie you have to experience on the big screen in a dark room, nobody chatting or speaking, and you just have to be fixated on the screen. If you watch this at home or anywhere else but the theatre, I feel like you wouldn't get the same experience, and I just think the movie would be pretty wasted on just watching it at home or downloading it illegally. So definitely go and see this movie if you haven't. If you are considering going to see it, I recommend 4D. I didn't see it in 4D, but I think just coming away from the movie and realizing, like, just watching it in 4D with the seat moving, I think it would have been an amazing experience. So if you haven't seen this movie already, watch it and try and watch it in 4D. But if you can't, definitely see it in the cinema. Now, for those who have seen it, stick around, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. The cinematography in this movie is absolutely outstanding. A huge applause for Roger Deakins for what he managed to accomplish with this movie. Now, if you don't know much about movies, this film looked like it was done in one take, which is just crazy to think about. But for some people who know just a little bit more about movies, you know that, like, there's this technique where the camera, like, goes around, and then say there's a rock or like a or a bag, so something will cover the screen completely. So say this is the camera, the rock will go like that, and then they'll go cut with the rock facing the screen, and then they'll say cuts, and then they'll gather all their people to say, right, do this, they'll take a break, and then they'll go action, and then they'll continue the motion going around the rock. So it looks like it was all done still. It's a bit like this. So you have the rock, and then say the scene where Blake, no, it's not Blake, Schofield falls into the river, and then there's like boulders and everything. The camera kind of turns around and, like, it pauses over, like, the rock. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the rock covers the whole screen here. If it doesn't, then this is a bad example, because it wouldn't happen. But if the rock does cover the whole screen, then what it did was, like, so it comes from there, so, like, it's watching Schofield over there, and then it comes over, covers the screen, cut, action, and it just continues the motion of the movements. And that's what this movie does. But those moments are so few and far between that this movie just feels endless, which is a great thing. And also, they also use blackouts. Obviously, you can use blackouts in movies, but, like, they use them so effectively that it's never annoying when it happens. So say, like, there's a moment where Schofield gets shot by a sniper. He doesn't die, but, like, because he opens the door and his helmet gets shot, and he just, like, it launches himself back onto the staircase, and then that's a blackout. But the blackout's needed there to, like, transition from, like, daytime to nighttime, like, and there's only, like, 2 or 3 transitions. And the moment with the rocks, those moments can be achieved with blackouts as well, because there's a bit where there's, like, really long stretch of, like, trenches, and then they go into the tunnel with all the generals and commanders. They go into there, and then there's, like, it's full on, like, black, and then they, like, swerve because that's the candles and the lights get thing. But you barely notice, like, any of that, and it just goes to show what they accomplished with this, because with the cinematography, it just elevates this movie so much and just makes it that little bit more amazing to watch. The dedication they went through to make this work has to be commended. The long takes of No Man's Land just make it that little bit longer. This movie has tense moments, and they're just made even more tense by the fact that the camera never cuts away. You're constantly engrossed with what's going on the screen. You're never taken away, because the camera's never taken away. It never jumps away from the action and never jumps away from anything that's going on. These moments just keep you gripped into the experience, and this movie keeps you on the edge of your seat constantly. That's what a war movie should do. And I don't think you'd get the same experience if, say, you're watching it at home. You have to be in the cinema to experience it. The story's pretty simple, but the style with which the movie is done cannot just simply be pushed aside. I know you can make the argument that without the cinematography, the movie is pretty bare bones, but still, the cinematography is still there, and it still makes the movie that much greater. And I think, to be honest, it's one of the greatest war movies of I've watched, to be honest. It's one of my favourites. The acting's top notch. The characters are interesting enough to be invested in them and their journey. And I cannot rate this movie enough. Definitely one of my favourite cinematic experiences. I think I might give it an 8 or 9 because the characters are interesting, that you care about the mission and how when Blake dies you feel the emotion of like I mean, you don't see them, you don't really see the bond between them two, but at that moment it really comes through. And he's telling like Schofield, tell my mum I was brave and that I wasn't scared, and it does hit you, and it's like it just elevates the performance of Schofield and how Schofield is determined to go through this mission. And then that leads me to the point where at the end when he's running through the field across the front lines, crossing, and he's bumping into everybody and explosions going on. It's really, really great and powerful, and it's just amazing. So I'm going to give 1917 9 out of 10.